Welcome to HBOT Journal, a channel dedicated to understanding hyperbaric oxygen therapy through evidence, science, and experience.
When you hear the word pressure, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's this idea of force, right? Something being pushed, something being physically driven into something else.
Well, here's the thing. In the world of hyperbaric medicine, that's not how it works. Not at all. In fact, that mental picture of a forceful push, that's probably the single biggest misunderstanding out there, and it's what we really need to clear up today. So, let's dive right in and get to the core principles.
So we're going to slow everything down for a minute and really just focus on this one single question. We're not going to get into outcomes or benefits right now. This is all about the fundamental physics. That's it. No claims, no promises, just the principles.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what pressure actually is. Then, we'll look at the two ways oxygen gets around in your body. We'll tackle that pressure isn't force idea head on. After that, we'll see why this all matters for safety. And we'll wrap up by talking about the limits, what pressure can't do.
Okay, let's kick things off with the most important mental shift you can make. Ready? Pressure isn't an action. It's a condition. Think of it as a state of being for an entire environment. I mean, right now, wherever you're sitting or standing, there's air pressure all around you. It's pressing on you evenly from every single direction. But you don't feel it, right? That's because your body is perfectly adapted to it. You're in equilibrium. That's our normal, our baseline. So let's get a little more formal for a second, because this is key. Pressure is a physical condition of a contained space, and it's applied equally in all directions. That's the part that really matters. Equally in all directions. It doesn't have a target, it's not aimed at anything, it's just a change in the state of the space.
So when you increase the pressure in, say, a hyperbaric chamber, nothing is getting shoved or forced into anything. All that happens is the gas molecules, the oxygen, the nitrogen, they just respond to the new conditions. They move a little closer together, the gas gets more dense. And it all happens quietly, predictably, just following the basic laws of physics. It's a condition, remember, not an action.
Okay, so if pressure is a condition, what does that actually do for oxygen in our bodies? Well, to get that, we need to look at the two ways oxygen travels. There's the way it works every single day, and then there's this second pathway that only becomes available under pressure. Normally, almost all the oxygen you breathe gets around by carriage. It literally hitches a ride on hemoglobin inside your red blood cells. You can think of these red blood cells as a fleet of tiny delivery trucks. They're super efficient, but just like a real truck, they have a limit. Once they're full, that's it. They're full. But pressure opens up a whole new route, dissolution. This is where oxygen, because of that change in condition, can dissolve directly into the plasma, the liquid part of your blood. And this process, it's not limited by how many trucks you have. It's just governed by the simple laws of physics.
Honestly, the best way to picture this is a sealed bottle of soda. The carbon dioxide isn't pushed or forced into the water. The pressure inside the bottle just creates the perfect condition for it to dissolve. It just disappears into the liquid. And the second you open that cap, you release the pressure, you change the condition, and poof, all that gas comes bubbling out. It's the exact same principle with oxygen in your blood plasma. Pressure doesn't force it in, it just creates an environment where more of it can quietly dissolve.
All right, let's tackle this head on. That central myth. We've all heard phrases like, pressure pushes oxygen into your tissues. And yeah, it sounds simple enough, but that kind of language is totally misleading. And frankly, it can lead to some really unsafe ideas about how this works.
So here's the absolute core difference. Force implies a direction. It has a purpose. A push goes from point A to point B. But pressure, it has none of that. It's an omnidirectional condition, equal in all directions. It's not targeting your knee or trying to find an injury. It just changes the entire environment all at once, equally.
So if it's not pushing, what is happening? Well, it's changing the gradient. Think of it like this. By dissolving more oxygen into the plasma, pressure creates this super rich oxygen environment in your blood. And then physics just takes over. The oxygen naturally and passively moves from where there's a lot of it to where there's less of it, like in your tissues. It's a gentle, downhill flow. It's not a shove.
Okay, getting this right. Understanding that pressure is a condition, not a force. This isn't just a science lesson. It has massive, real-world implications. It totally changes how you have to think about safety. So how does this principle shape how we use this technology responsibly?
Well, it all boils down to two things: time and control. Since this whole process is about letting the body adapt to a new condition, time becomes the most important ingredient. You can't rush it. Rushing doesn't add any benefit, it just adds risk. That's why pressurization has to be slow to give your body a chance to adjust. Then, the pressure is held steady and constantly monitored. And, this is just as important, coming back down, the depressurization also has to be slow, so your tissues can gently return to normal.
And this right here, this is why this is such a serious business in a medical setting. It's just not something you can be casual about. We're talking about fundamental changes to a physical environment. That's why medical pressure is always precisely measured, it's always monitored, and it's always supervised by professionals. All those control systems, all that training, it's all there for one reason: to manage these conditions safely.
Okay, so to really wrap this up, we need to be just as clear about what pressure can't do, right? Because it's no good clearing up one misunderstanding just to create a bunch of new ones. We have to understand the limits.
So let's be super direct here. Pressure does not force oxygen into your cells. It does not bypass your body's biology. It doesn't work on its own, separate from your physiology, and this is a big one. Just because more oxygen is available doesn't guarantee your tissues can even use it, and it absolutely does not guarantee any specific response. All it does is change one variable in an incredibly complex system.
And that brings us to the big takeaway, the one thing to remember from all this. Here it is. Pressure changes oxygen's availability. That's it. It does not determine the outcome. It just creates a different physical environment that has to be managed with skill. That one distinction, that is everything.
So that leaves us with one last question, right? If pressure is this quiet, indirect thing, if it's all about managing a condition and not applying a force, how does that basic principle actually shape the equipment and the rules in hyperbaric medicine?
Well, the answer is pretty simple. Control isn't just a nice to have, it is the absolute foundation of safety. Because the entire goal is to manage a precise physical environment, everything, from the chamber design to the computer systems to the staff training, it's all critical. It's why there are different systems for different situations, but the one thing they all have in common is the need for appropriate supervision.
To continue learning, explore the HBOT Journal channel.